The taunts slashed at 15-year-old Maya like the unseen blades of a phantom enemy, each jeer a fresh wound in her sensitive hearing. They didn't know. They couldn't know. Their cruel laughter echoed in the schoolyard, oblivious to the silent, simmering force hidden beneath Maya's unassuming exterior. Blindness was their weapon, and mockery their arsenal. But they had no idea that they were dancing on the edge of a hurricane, about to discover that their intended victim held the power to unleash a storm they could never have imagined. The world for Maya was a tapestry woven from sound. It wasn't a flat, two-dimensional plane of darkness, as some might imagine. Instead, it was a vibrant, multifaceted realm, sculpted by the echoes and vibrations that permeated every moment. The rustle of wind through leaves wasn't just a gentle whisper, it was a complex chord of textures. The crispness of autumn, the density of the branches, the subtle interplay of light and shadow dancing across the forest floor. The rhythmic tap-tap-tap of her white cane, lovingly nicknamed Starlight, wasn't merely a tool to navigate physical space. It was also a vital instrument, a percussive metronome that, with practice and expertise, enabled her to accurately see the terrain, the contours of the sidewalk, the looming presence of a mailbox. The symphony of a bustling city was not noise. It was a cacophony now translated into something richer and more detailed, providing the rhythm, the flow of life itself. Each sound, each texture, each scent, it was all data, meticulously processed and converted into a distinct tactile image within her mind. The world, for Maya, was a constantly evolving artwork, a living movie rendered in synesthesia with vivid details. She felt, she knew, she saw, but in the boisterous, often unkind reality of Central High, this intricate symphony was constantly under threat. The familiar melodies she found comfort in were all too frequently marred by a chorus of noise. She had a well-honed defense to protect herself. Her ears have always been her most important tools. The schoolyard, as always, was a chaotic, vibrant hub of activity. The concrete expanse echoed with the screech of basketball sneakers slicing across the polished court, a familiar tune of organized competition. The rhythmic thump of a basketball against the backboards, the shouts of coaches urging their players, each noise a familiar piece of the puzzle. Every so often, different groups of students would play their games. The sports team's cries of victory and frustration were always heard by Maya, the constant chattering of teenagers, a relentless buzzing hum now felt. It was a tapestry of human interaction. It was, to anyone else, an obstacle course. To Maya, however, it was a challenge she met with practiced ease. Starlight, her faithful white companion, tapped out a steady rhythm on the uneven pavement. It was an orchestra of motion. It was a beacon. She held her head up, a quiet pride in the fact that she could easily travel. Maya was a seasoned traveler, had been navigating these halls and grounds since her first day, with all the help of Starlight. The paths were now, to her, very clear, and she felt at ease, even though she was missing all of the images that other students did. It was all routine. She could smell the sweet aroma of freshly cut grass, as well as the pungent scent of spilled soda. These were all part of the constant changes in the school's environment. As she approached the main entrance, a familiar sense of unease began to bubble beneath the surface. It was a feeling she'd become accustomed to, a prickling sensation at the back of her neck, a tightening in her chest. She knew that now, her careful routine was about to be disrupted, as always. Today, her carefully constructed bubble of routine was about to be broken. The universe, for Maya, was not always the friendliest place. As she made her way across the crowded quad, she recognized the voices from afar, the harsh, unpleasant tones, the laughter that was never directed at her. A group of older students, known for their particular brand of cruelty, stood in her path, their forms coalescing out of the chaotic flow of humanity. They had never been friendly. They did not even try to be. Their mere presence was like a noxious cloud, a sudden chill that prickled her skin. The tormentors also seemed to know she was coming. They were older, they were taller. They had a much larger build, with the more intimidating glares. Maya already sensed what was going to come. She steeled herself for it. "Well, well, well, look who it is," sneered a voice, cutting through the ordinary chaos. It was a familiar voice, laced with that particular brand of venom. Maya was able to identify the source immediately. It belonged to Becky. Becky was the unofficial leader of their pack, known for her sharp tongue and even sharper attitude. She made sure the group was doing all of the work. The laughter that was the group followed, a wave of negativity that crashed over Maya. It was not new. The sound stung. The noise was a constant reminder that they were trying to harm her. It was as if she was under attack. Amina stopped. She stopped walking, her hand immediately steadying on Starlight. She was going for the mental strength. It was another tactic. She had used it so many times that it was now second nature. She knew how to deal with the torment. Maya was not going to surrender. She lifted her chin slightly. She also put on her usual serene demeanor, because she knew that it was the best way to respond. This was going to pass. All of this. This was all a test and a training. It was also a test of will. "Please, let me pass," she requested, her voice measured, showing a level of calmness. It was a calmness. It was also a voice from practice, a voice from training. It was born of countless repetitions. She had experienced this many times. It had become a kind of reflex, a response that helped protect her. The laughter did not stop. It intensified. It was a feeding frenzied that they enjoyed, a cycle of cruelty. "Aw, what's wrong? Can't see the way, Snowflake?" taunted Kevin. Kevin was always present. He was a hulking football player. He stood out with his sharp words. He could be used. He had a reputation for bullying students. That was what he did. But the words now did not hurt Amina. She was ready to face him. It no longer was the source of all of this pain, and it would not be the source of pain today. Maya did not respond. To that she merely ignored. She held her composure, her silence. She tapped her cane firmly. The rhythm was a beat-to-beat of confidence. It made the bullies even more sure. "Hey, look, it's Wonder Woman!" A voice now coming from one of the background bullies, a voice that came from another bully. Their words grew louder as they kept going. "What superpowers do you have?" She stood there. They knew the outcome. They were mocking her. And, like always, their intent was to demean. It made her feel smaller and powerless, or at least that's how it might have appeared. The schoolyard was a battleground, and Maya was a target. She wouldn't show any hint of sadness. She was always going to be ready. Maya's world, as she always knew, was based on understanding. It was something that the people who tormented her would never understand. Her blindness was a feature. She had learned to appreciate the qualities of the world. She had been through this so many times. The cycle kept going through her life. The best way to deal with it was to just ignore. "Why don't you just go home, Blindy?" The taunt made her shudder. This came from Becky. Her voice was layered with that same venom that she always had. All of the bullies were also repeating that phrase. It's the words that would become a part of her. A wave of hurt, although contained, surged through her. Even in the familiar setting, even with her shields up, the pain of not being accepted came from all directions. It made things difficult. The insult cut deep, but Maya had learned, over her many years of training, how to transform things. She was able to use that technique, because she needed to fight, to survive. She inhaled deeply, trying to contain her emotions. It was a practice honed over countless painful interactions. She was not going to be conquered. This was the most important thing. They were going to get over it. She could hear a slight shift in their stance. The noise was increasing. Each day at Central High for Maya was an assault on her senses. It required a constant balancing act, a careful negotiation of the treacherous terrain of teenage pettiness. And yet, even in this oppressive atmosphere, she held herself together. She had to stand tall. She had to remind herself that she was strong, that she was not defined by their cruelty. She was going to win. Her victory depends on her will, and in the silence of her mind, she mentally rehearsed the kata. The kata was a predefined sequence of movements, a martial art that had become the foundation of her ability. She committed it all to memory. It was an unspoken promise to herself. She was dedicated to honoring all of the exercises, all of the training, all of the effort. And within that circle, a new plan was forming in her mind. She had to do something. They didn't know, but they would. The shadows always knew. She was now prepared to start. The game was about to change. The jeers of the bullies, like thrown stones, echoed through Maya's heightened senses, but they did not penetrate her defenses, which were already in place. They did not land or shatter her inner calm. They did not sting as much as the bullies thought or wished that they would. She was ready. She had prepared herself for something that might happen. This was a test for all of them. She was going to prepare herself, and then, and only then, she could continue. They didn't know her. They knew nothing. The bustling of the Central High School cafeteria, a space that once felt familiar, had become a battleground. The clatter of trays, the echoing laughter, the murmur of countless conversations, all of that was now interpreted as a training area. All of it had become a field of exercises. If she could go through it, she could prepare herself. She could face this. It made her stronger. As she stood on that particular spot, feeling the unwelcome attention, she began to draw from all of her training. She could feel the power of the techniques and practices that would serve her well. She had to keep that in mind. She had to channel her strength, and she could make it. In the depths of her mind, her memory, echoing with the guidance of her patient sensei. The scenes, although old, were vivid. The dojo and all of its familiar spaces made her feel calm in an area that was filled with strife. There was a voice that would always stay within. She could and she must get through these challenges. Her sensei, her trainer, her guiding spirit, had spoken those words so many times that they were now fully ingrained into her memory. The dojo was one of the most important and special paces of her life. The echoing of the voices of her mind were now starting to quiet. In many ways, she felt the world change in front of her. She was entering a different space. She could feel all of it. The peace, the serenity, the power. She was in a different place. The day was now. The time was now. The dojo, the training area, was her haven. It offered a respite from the schoolyard's torment, an area that was filled with all sorts of trouble, and yet her time with her sensei had been a source of solace and strength. The dojo served as a quiet, peaceful, and safe existence. It was a place where respect was paramount. Her sensei had taught her the precision and respect. He had taught her all she knew. He had been a guide for a lifetime. She was able to excel. Her time had come. The training came to her through the blood, all the techniques, the practice, the power. After all of the time and dedication, she was now ready to begin, and she remembered all of their memories, the details of those memories, all the emotions, the lessons, all the training. Maya knew that her skills were greater now, that this would be used. "Your blindness is not a weakness, Maya," her sensei would often say. "It is a different way of seeing. The world is your dojo." She could feel his voice now, as if the man was next to her. He knew every inch of all of her moves. He had been preparing her all of her life. She had listened. She would continue her training. She had learned from him, as the physical manifestations of her tormentors and their taunts were still coming into being. She began to repeat the familiar form that Sensei had always talked about. The exercises, the movements, the techniques, the practices. The form was a promise. It helped her overcome. It was just a reminder. This was her life. She had to keep going. The rhythm of the movement was, now, almost the rhythm of her very being. The taunts now felt distant. They were now meaningless. They were nothing. She could feel the rise and falling of their voices. She was in control of all of this. She was going to turn all of the chaos. In her mind, she was starting to quiet the chaos. She was building herself to something greater. The training was never ending. All of this, she knew, was to protect herself. Every punch, every move, was to maintain her code of self-respect. They were so sure of themselves, it was going to lead to their defeat. They could be defeated because of the power of her training. Even in the cafeteria, the echo in her mind was a different space. She was now a warrior, a force that cannot be touched. A warrior that could stand in the face of the bullies. The power, the intensity, she felt it, the jeers and the insults. Her training began to set her free. She used the techniques. She remembered the teachings. Time began to slow down. Everything began to play out. She could feel the rush and the fury. However, this was not her fury, but an ally and a friend. Inside, the echoes of the past began to quiet. She now knew she had found the right direction, and it was time to face all of the challenges. The knowledge was, now, set in motion. The time was now. As the taunts and their negative comments continued to bounce off her ears, they started to become nothing. She could now predict what the bullies were going to attempt. She could prepare every aspect of what was to come. She was now in the training area. She was ready to face them. The details of the bullies had no effect on her, except for the fact that it helped her channel the power. The power of the skills, the movement, had been her strength from the beginning. As her sensei told her, her blindness was not a weakness, it was a way of allowing her to see even more. Now it was time to show them. In the mind's eye, she could anticipate every step. She could predict their future. They were still so sure. With every insult screamed, a new strike could be revealed. It was her time. She had to prepare. She had to be ready. She found her new goal. She was going to begin. The bullies with their taunts had now become the tools. And in that particular moment, the bullies were their own undoing. The energy was now transferred. The precision of her movements, the sound of her breaths, the beat of her heart, it had all turned into the tempo. As she was moving now, she focused her body. She was building the force. Her speed, agility, and strength had now come together. It became kinetic. She was ready to perform. She knew this. The whispers had reached their peak. Their insults had cut deep. It was time. She was going to move with the precision and speed that she could. The moment was here. She would take all of her strength and go forward with the fight. She knew there was a choice. She would select the only option that mattered. Their ignorance was going against the training. Their own plan was going to lead to their defeat. The world and the dojo was ready. Her body, the tools, the techniques, would carry out all of this. She was going to move. They would see their own defeat. She knew the time had come. She would do everything that would be possible to do, and she would start to move and perform like the one who had taught her. He was always going to be with her. Then everything began. She began to visualize all of the movements that she had learned. She started with the movements, the flow. Her body was ready. With every movement, with every flow, with every exercise, she was ready. Her strength and agility became more significant. Inside her was the knowledge that she had earned. It was time that she would put it all to the test. There was this feeling that she remembers every moment, the instructions, the teaching. This was her life. The time had come, and she was going to fight back. She was going to get victory and show her true form. In order to get to that point, she had been tested. The moment had arrived. She was going to give all of those people what they deserved. She was going to show them what she was built to show, and her training was going to demonstrate the greatness that was within. The time was now, and then she was ready to strike, and that is where the fight began. The battle began now. The bullies were not ready, and she, in the most amazing way, was ready and full of strength. She would be able to do everything that they had not given her. That is where everything changed. The transition from passive victim to active combatant was instantaneous. a sudden, explosive release. It was a moment of pure kinetic energy, a manifestation of the years of rigorous training, the discipline, the sacrifices. The shift was immediate and unexpected to those watching. Maya, in that very second, unleashed a flurry of movement, a cascade of expertly coordinated actions, so precise and blindingly fast that it became a blur to the untrained eye. It was a storm of controlled fury, a whirlwind of focused power unleashed upon a world that had consistently underestimated her. The taunts, the laughter, the cruel insults. They all ended instantly, abruptly silenced by a sharp, unfamiliar sound, the resonating crack of a precisely executed block. It was the sound of the beginning. It was the sound of their world shattering. It was the sound of Maya's unveiling. And in that sound, the bullies were now lost, not sure what had occurred. It was her statement, her declaration. The world, for a moment, had been altered. The schoolyard, with its noisy clamor, was suddenly still. The bullies, momentarily taken off guard, were stunned by the sudden turn of events. They could not, for the first time, comprehend what had changed. They could not fully understand what the fight and what came next was going to require. The scene had quickly turned from ridicule to shock. The transformation was as clear as the sky. The bullies had to understand who they were dealing with. The first in line to experience this force was Kevin, the most physically imposing of the group. Kevin was the first bully to discover her formidable strength, and also the mistake that was going to change his life. He was now face to face with what he had set in motion. He had no clue what he was facing. He had never been attacked. This was the last thing that he was expecting. He took a step toward Maya, his eyes glinting with a mixture of arrogance and surprise. He had been planning on making the situation and himself much worse. He had no idea for what to expect. His expression gave way to a look of pure shock, his stance changing from one of dominance to one of pure confusion. Before his feet could even fully register the shift, before he could even react to anything, his shoulder collided with an invisible barrier. He was met with a swift block, Maya's arm moving with the speed of a striking viper. It was a force, a quick, efficient movement, and it was a powerful one. It was a block so well timed and executed that it stopped his forward trajectory dead. It stopped him completely. He stumbled backward. He could not stop himself. He was a man who had never been challenged. He had never been taken down. He was not prepared for what would come. It was as if he had run face first into an invisible wall. He was stunned. He was shaken. He was out of balance. The force was enough to take his balance. He was now, for the first time, defenseless. He staggered. He became disoriented. The momentum that had sustained him was no more. He was vulnerable. Becky, the group's leader, was the next to be affected. She, caught by the unexpected turn of events, was surprised at the turn of events. Becky was a strong leader, not because she was strong, but because of her ability to intimidate. She had taken charge. She had lost her composure. She could sense that there was trouble. She could not handle things. Becky had been caught up in the show. She had been laughing as the tide of the group was continuing to diminish. The bullies started losing themselves. Becky had been so assured of her dominance and of her group's victory. Her plan had been to continue pushing the other person down. She also had not expected the sudden transformation. She could not believe. The second that she lunged forward, intent on reinforcing Kevin's dominance, she was now going to be the subject to the force that was now happening. Her defenses were the first to go. Her control. She had lost control. She had also lost her fear. The attack was a direct and swift sequence of events. It was a series of blocks and strikes. Becky was suddenly forced from feeling superior. With a series of blocks, precise and quick, her attempts to close the distance were easily deflected. She was now feeling the force, and she tried again with the same result. She knew she was finished. Maya, without hesitation, used the momentum of her attack. It caused them to shift. It was a series of shifting and stumbling. She was able to take control of what was going on. With each strike, That was a carefully measured whisper. It was followed by reality. It was a clear and defined attack. The air, for one moment, now carried just the sound of the violence. Then sounds of surprise. The attack, not violent but full of strength, forced Becky back. She was unprepared. The group's confidence was now disappearing quickly. They could feel it because of what had happened to Kevin. The bullies were not ready. They were not skilled. They had not fought any force. Maya had transformed. She had gained even greater strength. With the precision of the attack, it was now clear that even the most skilled of them would not be able to stand a chance. It was now clear. What they thought was an easy challenge was now a situation that would change the course of all of their lives. The power was now clear. The new plan was to eliminate them all from the scene. It was the only plan that mattered. Maya's strikes were precise and calculated. Her aim had been to disable, not to cause lasting harm. All of the years of training were now being used. The first strikes, the first blocks. The next person was Kevin. He was already injured. The next strikes came. She was completely untouchable. The strikes were a demonstration from everything. It was clear that the other bullies were also outmatched. They were now struggling within the confines of the schoolyard. This was an unequal battle. They were now just targets. With speed and agility, each maneuver caused them to stumble. Maya had mastered. She had developed her senses from the beginning and worked on them. It was now clear that she had gone beyond. Becky, even though she had thought all of the attacks were useless, was defeated. She began to move. She realized that she was not going to be able to get up. This was now coming to fruition. The fight had turned out to be nothing. While she was trying to compose herself and understand what had just happened, she was able to get her bearings, yet she could not. Even in the new world, the bullies continued to experience humiliation. The wind of Maya's movement and the quick blocks caused them to shift and stumble. The impact of the attacks was more clear than anything. The impact of those strikes had been great. What was now revealed? The fight was over, and Maya had won. The aftermath, the shock, the disbelief, it washed over their faces. It has all become the same. The cheers had stopped, the mocking, the silence that consumed the school. The school was now silent. All of the noises that were previously there had stopped. It was still, but in 15 minutes, all would change again. The only sound was their own breaths, the shouts, the fear. They were now consumed. It was like a dream. They had all failed. Her victory was complete. Her form had now come to life. The victory did not come from brute force. It came from the years of training, hard work, dedication, and knowledge. They all had fallen. They never saw it coming. She walked out the circle of violence, humiliation, hatred, anger, and all of these things. She walked away. She had, finally, done it. The bullies, humbled, were going to be forever changed. The echoes of the schoolyard continued to move. It continued to beat. A new day was here, and so was Maya. The world was different. Maya, the conqueror. The silence was broken, and that is how it all ended. The victory belonged to her. The whispers, insidious tendrils of the unexpected, began their swift, silent spread through the echoing halls of Central High, a low hum. Did you see what happened? Like the movement of a river that quickly became a storm. That blind girl, she took them all down. It was an event that was now more than a rumor. It was instant news. A name was set, Maya. And now it would always be tied to something new, the truth of what was. A new legend was now beginning. The details had been altered from moment to moment, but that was okay. These were the details that made things more interesting. The news, that spread like wildfire, had engulfed every conversation. The principal had to step in order to take care of all of these rumors. Maya had been known the rest of the school year. The school day quickly had changed. The students did not stare. The ridicule had stopped. The violence was gone. Her actions from the playground were no longer something that others would make fun of. The tables had now turned. It was a sensation. Students were now talking about it, and them. What used to happen? Maya was the main center of attention, mostly from what had happened. They did not know what had happened. The bullies, now bruised with humility, the experience changed their personalities. The whole point of the story, however, was for Maya. They never again threatened Maya. They were now gone. They vanished from her world. Some stayed, but now they knew. Maya continued to go to school. This was a victory for her. She had broken free. She had gotten better. They chose new places. They chose other classes. It was all a new world. The results were going to be clear for life. They all had the freedom to live differently. They all moved on, and Maya made sure to do it on her path. The respect from her new peers was something that had not happened before. She had earned something. It also brought the support from the teachers, the staff, and the students. It began to build a new life, a life of inclusion, equality, and freedom. The school had changed. It had changed for Maya and the other students. She had turned everything around. Even the principal, someone she had encountered before, from the beginning of her career, had reached out and said that Maya had a power to be recognized. She was an inspiration. The principal recognized Maya's value. From now on, everyone who knew and saw Maya treated her with respect. The tide had turned. It all transformed for her and her future. Everything had changed. The winds stopped. The echo of their fight, the fear, had been now transformed. It was something new. It was power. This experience transformed the environment in Central High and, in time, beyond. She had done the unbelievable. She had won. The transformation was to be followed with a launch of many programs. The change had to happen with the school's involvement. The school, in an effort, launched a new program. The new program was now focused on helping the students. The students would also be learning the significance of all their physical and mental challenges. They were going to change the school to have better diversity. This was the most important challenge. The new program provided a new path. It would become the basis of everything. Everyone began to see the world in a new way. The results, for the school, had brought a sense, for a greater understanding. Every student would now be included. A world of hope was now present. The curriculum was modified. The program was also a success. They had made it. The school, as it used to be, was no longer. They had made a change. The change began immediately. The most significant change for Maya meant it was time for her to feel happy. She was now ready to move on. Everyone, even the bullies, were now better. She had helped everyone. And in order to help more, she knew she had to work. She would begin. She had to make a change. She was going to begin a routine. She was going to continue her training, but her focus would also continue to be on the goals and what she needs to achieve for life. And now she was going to be ready to make a difference. The new program showed how the power she had was a tool to make changes. The past did not matter. All that mattered was the future. Maya realized this as she began to embrace her new life. Maya understood now that she needed to bring all of her strength and all of her skills. Her teachers and her administration were trying to make her life so good, and she was going to show them that they would all come true. Maya had gone through a lot. She knew how it felt to be excluded, and now she had a new life. She was able to share her experiences. She used it to her advantage. And now, there were no shadows. Many people still could not imagine. She now was ready. She was able to inspire so many students. She became an icon in New Central High. She now had her dream. Her future was very real. With help from the administration team, the help from her family, and the other students. Together, they provided help. The program gave the students new hope. It would make them feel connected. The program, as the months passed, turned out to be a great endeavor for the students. The The students' minds and their hearts grew full of joy and peace. Maya was thrilled. Her dream was coming true. She embraced her life's new mission with open arms. She was now the leader. She would now be a leader. She set up a new type of self-defense program for children and adults. It was to help those who needed to handle their bullying. She was able to give back all she learned. She was now going to be the one who showed what was up. She was going to show them that they could have all their dreams come true. And as for Maya, she had discovered that she was more than just a student. She had now become a mentor, and her new world opened up. Maya turned all of her pain into an instrument of triumph, and now helped others. The power was now her power. Her voice was now heard. She never stopped. She had a purpose, and she knew that she had work to continue doing. Maya set up her life and would never stop helping others. Maya was now going to be something new, a symbol of hope and resilience. For Maya, life was never going to be the same again. The world was in motion. The city needed her. Even the city gave her the motivation. As she walked the school every day with or without starlight, she felt like she had control of everything. She would also start a new school club. The goal was to inspire. The goal was to give encouragement. The main aim was to give everyone strength. The goal was to never give up. And from there, she had to build everything from the start, starting with the training. Maya continued. She started. She now became a karate teacher. She started her classes. She would remember everything that took her here and made her this person. She began her classes for those who suffered and felt as if there was no light. Her hope became her purpose. Her mission became a symbol of resilience, the hope for the future. This was how everything became, the shadows of hope, her new reality. From this day forward, she will find it easy to smile. She knew she had to continue. She looked back into her life and her future, and she was ready to bring light to those who needed it. That's all that happened. The people who were once bullies had changed too. They were better people, and with her now, everything was peaceful. It was all the shadows of hope. Maya's journey reminds us that inner strength can overcome any challenge. Share and use Maya's story to inspire others to pursue their goals no matter their obstacles. Read more about her, see her journey,